Okay, we're good.
Good. All right. The Oregon City Library Board will come to order at 5:31 p.m. on August 12th. In attendance are Larry Osborne, Cynthia Andrews, Scott Edwards, David Goldberg, and Carrie Linder. Absent are Nick Dirkman and Ken Hall. And happy birthday, Ken, if you ever see this. Library staff Greg Williams and Denise Butcher and Sabrina are also in attendance. Our first item is approval of the minutes from March and from June. You should have received those last week. Were there any additions or corrections to the March and June minutes?
No, I move to accept them both.
A second.
Second. All right. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from March and June say aye.
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 Say nay. All right. We've approved the minutes, and now we will go to library director's report, and I think Sabrina first up.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, with your permission, Scott, I'm going to change up the order just a little bit, and we're going to have Sabrina talk. Just so, of course, she's welcome to stay for the entirety of the meeting, but Sabrina's already put in a full day's work, so I would love to be able to let her go. So I was hoping I'm going to move her section up a little bit so she can address this first, and then we'll resume with the rest of the agenda as presented, as long as there is no objection.
No.
Okay. All right, so Sabrina is going to talk about our teen LGBTQ collection. I know that this was something that predated me being here, and I believe that Mo had brought some information about this collection to the library board when it was under development and being implemented. Since then, the collection has been created and come to life, and we are celebrating. Sabrina and Barrett got an article on the collection published in the recent edition of the Oregon Library Association Quarterly. It was supposed to come out. When was it supposed to come out, Sabrina? Like,
I think it was supposed to come out in October.
in October.
Something like that.
Yeah, and then the world kind of took a left turn, so the
Yeah.
article has been delayed, but published, and we thought opportunity to recognize the staff for the work they've done and to have Sabrina
You're coming in and
update
out.
on the project. Sorry.
Your voice is coming in and out, volume-wise.
Is that all right? Let's do this. I am going to call in. Am I still cutting in and out?
No, it's
No.
okay now.
Okay. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Sabrina, and in the meantime, I'm going to call in, so hopefully this won't happen again. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sabrina talk about the collection and answer any questions you might have about the project or where we are with it. So Sabrina, take it away.
Thank you. It's going to be kind of brief, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has at the end. So I wanted to start by talking about how the collection sort of came to be. The idea for the LGBTQ collection came from a need to serve out and proud or questioning or closeted and fearful LGBTQ youth in our community. And as an added bonus, it also filled a need to continue to diversify our collection in the teen section. So until recently, just a very brief history of LGBTQ publication. But until recently, finding books for teens that feature an LGBTQ protagonist was hard. There were books written, but they often ended with in the character's demise and not in a very positive light. So for youth who are trying to navigate life and who they are, and finding books that have characters that reflect maybe what they're feeling or going through, we felt that it was important to kind of meet that need. We also, when I say we, I'm talking about youth services. Barrett and myself, we would often get requests from people looking for books that featured LGBTQ characters. And we did have some. They're just often challenging to find in the collection or on the catalog. So we started realizing that not only should we have more, but it should be easier way to find them. And so the two major players in sort of navigating all of this and to make the collection happen was the Library Foundation's willingness to provide seed money to our collection, to start our collection, and the Living Room for LGBTQ Youth in Clackamas County. They are a group of teens that meet weekly on Wednesdays at the Unitarian Church across the street from the library, but they also meet in different parts of the county as well. So I had a very good conversation with them on how they wanted to see. We were getting a lot of feedback from them as well. So they were kind of they were very important to this process of kind of creating this collection. And as far as creating it, we met with them and had a very holistic conversation about, did they in fact want an LGBTQ collection? And of course it was a resounding yes. And I also wanted to know, without giving them any hints or prompts, I wanted to know how they envisioned going into the library and finding books, because sometimes kids and teens don't want to come to a library staff member to ask for help for whatever reason, whether it's the content that they're looking for or, whatever. So they actually are the ones that came up with the idea for what is the actual location and kind of all the bells and whistles of the collection. So if you've been into the library and you haven't seen the collection, I encourage you, as soon as those doors fly open, to go upstairs and look at the collection. But I'll kind of give you a description. There is a section in the library where the LGBTQ collection lives. And each book, and there's fiction and nonfiction, and each book has a spine label that has a rainbow unicorn on it. So you know for sure that you are getting that LGBT, you know where this book belongs. But part of the conversation that I can never really find the right words to describe with the group of teens that I had with the conversation I had with them was so fantastic, because I watched them I was almost a bystander and just watched them go through the process of, we want to have this, we want to have our own section so it's easy for us to go and browse, but they also took full consideration into the people that weren't there, who may not be comfortable browsing in a collection that is so open and so clearly LGBTQ. And they were the ones that came up with the idea to do any kind of duplicates in the rest of the collection in the teen area without a spine label. So anything that's fiction and LGBTQ also has a duplicate copy in our regular teen fiction. And same with the graphic novels and the manga. The only thing that's not duplicated is the nonfiction, because a lot of the nonfiction books are clearly an LGBTQ type of book. So labeling it and not labeling it really doesn't make a difference. So there's no duplicates of those. So that's kind of a quick rundown of how it came to be, in a sense, and where it lives and what it looks like. As far as stats, if anybody's interested, we did run some stats for the 2019 year, and the LGBTQ collection makes up about a little bit more than 4% of the overall teen collection. So it's still little, but it's pretty good. And there are about 100 and in 2019 there were 197 books total in the collection. That number has increased now that we have been able to start doing collection development during this pandemic. So I think that's a little over 200 now. And on average, each book, let's see, on average, there was about 4 checkouts for each book in the collection for that year, which is pretty great because there's, if you compare it to say just the teen fiction collection there, which only had 5, which not only had 5 checkouts. I don't mean to make it sound really bad because it's actually really good, but that's kind of a quick rundown. I know it doesn't kind of go into the details of it, and I'm sure I've missed something really awesome, but that's kind of what I have, if anybody has any questions. And hopefully you've read the article because it also gives a little bit more detail too about kind of what happened before I came to Oregon City and the efforts that Barrett had forged before my time.
Hey, Sabrina, I had a question, but it's not exactly related to the LGBTQ specifically. I noticed about halfway through your article, you indicated that, you know, teens could get their own library card if they had a school ID. And that raised a red flag for me about those kids that are homeschooled or out of school. I spent a lot of my teaching career with kids that have dropped out and dropped back in again. And, you know, I'd hate to exclude those kids when they're not with us in a school setting. So how are we actually dealing with that, and why was that a restriction on how they could get a library card? Not just the LGBTQ
Sure.
interested population, but the population as a whole.
And I'll answer, but Denise, it's been a long time since I've been processing cards, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. For starters, anybody can get a library card and we can issue them a temporary card without any kind of ID, which will allow them up to 3 checkouts without having ID or proof of the address. And that's good for a short amount of time. And then they can bring in a piece of mail and some form of ID. It doesn't have to be a school ID. It can be, yeah, it doesn't have to be a school ID. So at some point they have to come back in and sort of hash out all of that information with the circulation staff. Did I answer that correctly? Do I get 10 bonus points for remembering circulation stuff?
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's helpful to clarify that. It just
Yeah.
seemed kind of exclusive, and I didn't think we were about that. So
Yeah, no, we are always trying to get cards in people's hands.
great,
Yes.
great. Thank
Sabrina,
you.
Sabrina, I have a question. Actually, a couple of questions.
Great.
One, are there resources to continue to replenish this collection?
They are always being replenished. That's part of my collection development. It's always, I won't say it's a priority, but it's because all of my book collections are a priority. But it's important for me to continue to fill those stacks with books.
And are the kids involved in selection of materials?
In the beginning, it's so hard to answer those questions now because I'm not in the library, and I'm like, I feel like I'm not being truthful. But when I was in the library, I often saw teens from the living room group, and they are always welcome to, and I've said this before, and I had worked with the coordinator of that group. If there's ever been anything that has come across their lists of books, that they are always welcome to give me suggestions. I love getting suggestions more than anything. And also in the teen section, there are forms that people can fill out to give recommendations, basically.
Any other questions for Sabrina? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation, Sabrina.
Sure.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Yeah, I just want to recognize Sabrina and Barrett for all the work that they have done to build this collection, and again, give them kudos for having that article published. That's a real nice feather in the cap for the Oregon City Public Library, for the city as well. So great job.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, so we'll move on then to Greg, to your library director report.
Okay. Hopefully my audio is a bit better. I switched over to phone. I've learned during the pandemic that Dell laptops are not my favorite, but be that as it may. So I won't read the director's report word for word. I did want to spend a little time on the first section, just on kind of staff and what's been happening in the facilities. So as I have a couple times before, I really do want to recognize our staff who have been, frankly, they've been amazing, especially in the last 2 months since we got back in the building and have been dealing with a huge volume of materials coming back. Our circulation staff have been rock stars. They have been wonderfully adaptive and flexible and just wonderfully positive attitudes. And the rest of the staff who have some time in the building and some time out of the building have also just been great. So anytime we talk about staff, I have to recognize them. They have risen to the challenge of this pandemic and are doing great work. So I just kind of wanted to give a little overview of kind of what it looks like, focusing on the circulation aspects, what it looks like in the average day in a library. So for our staff concerns at this point are keeping everybody safe and healthy. To that end, every day we have a daily morning huddle for everybody who's going to be in the library that day. We make sure we've got adequate PPE, whether it's gloves, masks, sanitizer, wipes, spray. We make that available to all of our staff. That right-hand picture you see if you have the director's report open, that is our whiteboard where we have kind of our checklist that we go through every single day, section by section, word for word. I predict that Denise could do this in her sleep from memory at this point. We have joked, we have never asked our staff members on such a routine basis about their medical conditions or whether or not they're having gastric distress or any of those symptoms and the like. So, but every day we go through it and we make sure that everybody is feeling healthy. We do self-health assessments. We go through our protocols just to make sure that they're absolutely clear. Some of those include wiping down every surface, that we're working at. Anytime we're handling materials that are patron bound, we are wearing masks and gloves. We are I would say 95 to 99% of the time, we are all wearing masks in the library because we're all working in the public areas. The only exceptions are, when Denise or I are alone in an office, we'll take it off. But every time we're in the public floor, or you can see another staff member, you have your mask on. We did recently get some face shields for staff members who might find that more comfortable. We got some clear mouth masks because we do have a staff member who's hearing impaired, and it makes it easier for her to read lips and to communicate with staff. So we're doing everything we can to keep staff safe, to make sure that they feel they can come to us with questions or concerns, and the feedback has been very positive from staff. So we're very glad that people feel safe working here. With that said, other than the safety challenges and concern, the other thing that we're working on right now, and knock on wood, it's going to work out fairly well, is school. We know there are staff members who have school-age children and are going to have some challenges providing for education since most school districts in the area are going distance, at least for the first couple of months. We think we have some good plans in place for the staff who are impacted. The city has been very supportive of managers being as flexible as we can while still providing services to the community. So we we know it's going to be a challenge. It's probably going to go on all school year. And we are just going to continue to be flexible and adaptable and work with staff to make sure that we give them opportunities to both get their work done, provide service to the community, but also take care of their families, take care of their children's educational needs, and quite honestly, without killing themselves, because there's no way somebody can work there's without some flexibility, it's not realistic to expect that somebody's going to put in 16-hour days every single day to try to fit everything in. So we're being as flexible as we possibly can. The other items I kind of wanted to share was just kind of what the interlibrary looks like nowadays and kind of how we're using the various spaces. So you'll see a picture there. So we are, we're 2 months into our hold pickup, month and a half into our hold pickups. And it has been growing as we've been going along. So the community room is basically our holds pickup central. You see a picture there of long tables. Every evening we pull the holds for the next day's appointments. In the morning we go over that list yet again to make sure that no new holds have come in or no appointments have been canceled. During the course of the day we are checking those out to patrons, putting them in bags, and putting them outside during the patron's 10-minute appointment slot. We sanitize the tables in between each appointment, and it has been going. It's been going very well. Some glitches that we found. I would say the biggest challenge is for patrons who think that they have successfully made an appointment and they finished the process, and they might not have finished. Click the last "Submit my request" button, and so they'll show up thinking that they have a reservation, and we don't have one for them.
Happened to me.
And the approach to patrons, yeah. So we're trying to improve the communications about how to make a reservation, trying to put more information on the website, kind of step by step how to do it. If somebody shows up without an appointment, we do everything we can. If we have an empty slot later that day, we'll schedule them and just say, hey, if you can come back in 20 minutes or half an hour or whatever, we'll get you in. Otherwise, let us help you make an appointment for another day. And I will say the reaction has been largely positive from the community. We have had some patrons who I am charitably saying that they're frustrated with everything else that is going on in the world, and it's a challenging time in many, many aspects. And sometimes when you have somebody right in front of you, sometimes some of our staff does get a little bit of an earful about the state of the world. So, but thankfully those are few and far between, and we've gotten some really good feedback about the full pickup service. The next picture shows the lobby, and this is where we are storing all of the materials that we get in while we are quarantining them. I provided the latest summary of the findings from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which found we had originally been quarantining items for 72 hours. Based on IMLS's original guidance. They did a second round of testing for some different types of materials, and specifically on items with glossy pages like board books and magazines. They found that there was still detectable virus after 4 days. So we increased our quarantine period to 4 days. As you can see, especially when we have a whole bunch of materials coming back that are due at once, that stacks up, and we have been very creative in finding receptacles and places to store these things. And it's been, I would say that's probably been the biggest operational challenge that we've had over the past couple of months, is just dealing with the volume of materials coming in and not being able to process them immediately. I keep telling my staff and others, libraries weren't built to handle materials in this way. The idea is the material comes in, and just as soon as it comes in, you get it checked in, you get it on its way, back on the shelf, onto the next person. Nothing is set up to allow for that much material just halting and waiting to process. So that's been a challenge.
Are the libraries holding the materials when they come in at their library, and then when it goes to the through link to the other libraries, then they can disperse it without having to hold it another 4 days?
So we have, I've made the decision that the materials that are coming in from other libraries, we want to make sure that the items that we are sending out to our patrons have been fully quarantined and have been handled with the same protocols that we are using on our materials, which is that if they've been handled by a staff person wearing a mask and a staff person wearing gloves. That is not a universal standard amongst the link libraries. And so the materials that are coming in, we know that there are some libraries who are handling their materials differently. So for the courier deliveries, we are holding those and quarantining those as well. That That does hold up the delivery a little bit, but it is something that I feel is important to do to make sure that we are doing everything in as safe a manner as possible.
Greg, are you keeping up with the volume, the daily volume?
On a weekly basis, we are keeping up with it, I would say. So kind of the routine, the routine that's evolved, we have a very heavy load of returns to process on Mondays, because that's when a lot of the quarantine, especially with the weekend, since things that we receive right before the weekend sit until Monday. So probably on Monday and Tuesday, we get through the bulk of items that we have that are sitting there. That leaves kind of the midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We do what's called the pick list, which is we pull all the holds that are destined for our patrons or destined for other patrons. We get the materials back on the shelves, so we do a lot of our shelving. We are having challenges with shelving at this point because also libraries are not meant to have all of their collection in the library on the shelves all at once. They're meant to be out in people's hands. And so our shelves are very full at the moment. And then Friday, we do a little more processing. So on a weekly basis, yes, we're keeping up with it. We've communicated to all the link libraries have communicated to patrons that when you return an item, it may take up to 7 days to clear from your account. And everything that we're receiving, even things that go to the courier, they should be cleared within 7 days. Most everything is being quarantined for 4 days. We get to it right after that quarantine period, and we're keeping up with it. So.
What percentage of the staff is coming in is back to work in the library?
So we'll do it by section. So the circulation staff, so we have gone to an A-B shift for our circulation staff. We want to make sure that if, God forbid, somebody comes down with COVID and we have to isolate other staff members, that we have a pool of circulation staff that we can call in, come in, and keep our circulation operations going. That's kind of our number one priority, is to make sure that we can keep circulation going. Because if we lose, it keeps me up at night. If we lose, a number of staff members, we would probably have to scale back our holds pickup, scale back our circulation, and that would be problematic. So we have had several, we'll call them close calls, staff members or their families who have been exposed. Thankfully, all of those tests have come back negative. So we have not yet had to deal with somebody coming down with COVID. So I think our circulation staff, pretty much they are all working, just they're 1 week on, 1 week off, 1 week on, 1 week off. We get them hours as we can. Our technical services staff, they're the ones who are receiving the new materials, doing the cataloging. They are in every day. They are downstairs in the basement staff area. They are coming in every day. They're keeping up well with the incoming materials, with helping with some weeding, helping with getting stickers put on things. They are helping us create some social media content, taking pictures of the books so that we can post them and help people browse a little bit, all the new items that are coming in. We also have we have a good mailing program going on. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Our craft kits and our summer reading prize books that we are sending out. So our youth services staff, we have a member of our youth services staff coming in. Somebody from youth services is in at least once or twice a week to do mailing to help us with that. We need to increase that as we go forward. And we're trying to figure out how to do that. Our adult services staff and our IT and public relations staff, they're coming in on a project basis during this phase of the city's reopening process. So when we get to the next phase of the reopening process, I anticipate we will have more staff in the building more frequently, but that's kind of where we are right now. Circ staff in here, there are Circ staff in here every day on an AB shift. Tech services staff is in here every day. Youth services staff are splitting time between home and in library to help with mail, and IT, adult services, and PR are doing project-based and some home time as well.
What has been the budget impact of this?
Budgetarily, there has been. We'll get to the district distribution. You know, since we're largely property tax funded, we are probably not going to know the budget impact of COVID until November, December, when next year's property taxes come in. If the delinquency rate goes way up, our revenues will go way down. We have been keeping our staff fully busy, so all of our staff are working. Let me rephrase. Our full-time staff are continuing to work full-time. Our represented full-time staff are working full-time. Our on-call staff, we've cut back, and I don't want to put Denise on the spot. We have cut back the total number of hours that they were getting prior to the pandemic. They're getting fewer hours, you know, just because the amount of stuff that we have to do is a little less. But we have done everything we can to distribute those hours as fairly as we can, bring people in to make sure that they're able to work and that they're getting our stuff done. There's plenty of circulation work still to do. So budgetarily, there hasn't been much of an impact yet, I would say. You know, we've got a 2-year budget. We have a biennial budget. We're appropriated for funds throughout to the end of the next fiscal year, and we've come in under budget on several categories. So I think we're okay for now.
The Oregon City Library compared to other libraries in Clackamas County when it comes to the days and hours that it operates now since we've reopened? If you know, you might not know that off the top of your head.
So I'm going to our catalog site right now where we have every library has put their hours and their operating hours. And if you like, I can share my screen real quick and we can take a look. Oh, Denise, can you allow me to, to share my screen?
Sure.
Sure.
Let's see, I can make you a host, allow record, rename. If I just make you a host, will you be able to?
I think so.
Okay, you're
There
there.
we go. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, can everybody see that screen showing up? Got the link logo at the top left. Library status updates and hours. Is everybody seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's the list of, so here's where every library is posting their open hours. Everybody's facility is closed except for the city of Wilsonville. So the city of Wilsonville they have opened up their lobby area to do hold pickup. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Wilsonville Library building. They have a very large kind of lobby area that they have been able to move everything out of and put things in the side and clear things out. So Wilsonville is open for limited services. They're open Tuesday through Saturday. You can see the hours are here. Most everybody else is operating on a limited schedule. There is nobody who is open their normal operating hours, 7 days a week, the number of hours that they are open. Some have a weekend day that they have opened. Others, like ourselves, we have some evening hours that we've offered. I wouldn't say there's consistency with the hours and the days that libraries have chosen to open. So we have chosen to do Monday through Friday, initially for making it easier to schedule staff in the building and to manage that, to offer some evening hours. As we go farther along and we have some more flexibility with bringing staff in, weekend hours is certainly something we're looking at to see if we can expand and offer that. But right now, that's not something we're able to do. Does that answer your question, Scott?
What about expanding like the book drop off hours? Is that
That is a good question. May I defer answering that until we get to the, well, I'll answer shortly. We have an agenda item on purchasing a new book drop, and I just want to go over that with the board a little bit because it will be helpful to me to have you on record as supporting us getting another book drop. So the current issue we're facing with keeping the book drop open longer than we are is capacity. When the library, even when the library was open, the capacity of the existing book drops was not sufficient to the volume that we receive. We have to have staff go every hour to go out and check that book drop to bring stuff in. Otherwise, it gets too full and patrons can't leave materials there. That has been exacerbated by the current situation. So I will be talking in a little bit about getting a second book drop that will hopefully allow us to have those book drops open 24/7. So.
Okay, that'd be great, because I know I had an issue when I worked very close by and I wasn't able to drop off my books, and I was going to be gone for the weekend and they were due that day. And then I can imagine people who live outside Oregon City area, you know, have their schedule. They can't schedule that around when they can drop a book off. So I was just curious about that. So that's great. That's good to hear.
Yep. So yeah, we have heard that feedback. I will let the board know. All the link libraries have agreed that even though things are considered overdue at this point, let me back up. We extended due dates. So everything that was borrowed before any library closed, we successively extended all the due dates until July 31st. And then the libraries decided, okay, after July 31st, it was time to start getting some materials back. So we started having due dates on materials. There are no fines accruing on any of those materials. We have all agreed as a cooperative that there are no fines will accrue through Labor Day. So even though an item is showing up as overdue on the account, there is no financial impact to patrons who can't get them back in time. We have been letting patrons know that. We have been working with patrons to renew items that they have out. And this week we did open the book drops. We now have them open 2 evenings a week to temporarily allow people a little more flexibility in getting materials back. And like I said, as soon as we get that new book drop in, we should be able to have those open 24/7. Any other questions before I go on?
I do have a question, but I'm not sure you might be addressing it later.
Go ahead.
My question is, what are the library's plans now to reopen more and more? Like, what's the next step and the step after that? And is there a plan on that, or?
There is a plan, yes. So the city has what they're calling a phased reopening plan. And the city has divided their reopening stages into 5 separate stages. And I can provide a copy of that. I can send that out. I can give that to the board. We are in stage 3 of that plan. And generally, this is all, these are decisions by the city manager makes. But generally, phase 3 kind of coincides with phase 1 of the governor's reopening plan. The city's phase 4 coincides with phase 2 of the governor's reopening plan, and the city's phase 5 would coincide with the city's phase 3 of their reopening plan. The plan that we came up with was, and this was at the time, nobody knew how long these phases were going to last. So in the phase 3 that the city is in, I believe it's called the core services plan, the core services phase. During this phase, we start to bring back staff. That's why we brought back our circulation staff to do the circulation activities, to kind of get those core services up and running. And for us, those core services were circulating materials, getting new materials in, getting holds pickup started, and the like. The next phase would be phase 4 of the city's plan. Our plan during that phase is the biggest thing would be computer usage. We know the next biggest need that we've heard from the community is we have a population of users who either do not have a device available that they can access the internet with, or that they might have a device available, but they don't have anybody to help them use it. With the helping them using it, we have staff who are available by phone and by email and by Zoom meeting if people can take advantage of that. So we've tried to do some outreach based on that. But for those people who don't have access to a computer, we want to be able to offer that service. We would look at, our plan is to do that as part of phase 2. And the way we're planning on doing that right now, there was a picture in the director's report that would be in the Carnegie area of the library. So if you look at the picture, we've cleared out all the furniture that was in the Carnegie, so all the sofas, all the chairs, all the carpets. And we have taken computer tables from the kids area and put those around the room where there's data and power. We need to do a little more measurement just to make sure that we can maintain adequate physical distance between people who are coming into the library. But the idea is that people will be able to make an appointment for using a computer. They will have some predetermined amount of time that they can use it. Probably, I'm going off kind of my gut feeling at this point. It would probably be about a 45-minute session to begin with. And we would schedule these things on the hour. So people would come in, we'd have probably 5 people at once in that could come and use a computer. They could use it for 45 minutes. We would have a staff member there behind our protective shielding, able to answer questions. We're looking at some way that we might be able to offer remote assistance so that, you know, if a patron has trouble with a computer, the staff member at the desk can remote into their PC and kind of take control and do some mouse movements and help with that. People would use computers for 45 minutes. We would get them safely out of the building, and then staff would go and sanitize everything. We're looking at waterproof keyboards and waterproof mouse pads to facilitate easy sanitization of those things, so we can just hopefully not spend a whole bunch of time in between appointments sanitizing things, but we do have to make sure we do it safely. So we would have staff sanitize the stations in between each appointment time and get people into the building to use the computers. That's kind of the next big thing that we're looking at in terms of service. We have thought about also doing something like Wilsonville, allowing some sort of in-person, you know, within the library picking up holds. That's a little more challenging for us, especially given the space that we have. We are looking at getting some more sophisticated people counters so that we can better measure occupancy, you know, simultaneous occupancy in the building. We need to make sure that as we let people in, we can maintain distance between staff, we can maintain adequate physical distancing between people. And the question is it easier to just continue to do outside hold pickup, and we can do that pretty safely, pretty easily, pretty quickly, or do we try to move that service inside the building just so we can let people in the building, but maybe not be able to turn around as many materials? So that's something we're kind of cogitating and thinking our way through. So, and then phase 3, the final phase of the city's reopening, that's when we would look at providing the maximum number of services that we could. We would anticipate opening up for some form of limited browsing. Again, it's probably going to be capacity-based. It might even be appointment-based, where you make an appointment and say, I'm going to come in and look through the kids area. We will make sure that we are observing occupancy limits. Any sanitization or cleaning efforts that we have to do would have to be built into that. And so we're kind of thinking about that. It's hard to make very specific plans for something that appears to be that far ahead in the future. So that's about as far as we've gotten. And I've got a spreadsheet which lists every service that we're offering in the library and what the level of service that we can provide during each phase is. And I'd be happy to share that with the library board. I can send that out so you guys can take a look at that.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, that was probably a very long answer to
Oh, that was
your
interesting.
question.
What complicated, convoluted process.
With everything we do, we're trying to make sure that we do it safely. And really, I keep coming back to library facilities are not designed to keep people distance. and to not have people communicating and interacting closely. And so every single thing that we do in the library, whether it's facilitating browsing, whether it's the desks that we have to people come in, whether it's computer usage, whether it's programming and story time, none of that is built around a physically distanced model. And so everything, we have to take a real hard look at how we're doing this. Can we do some version of that safely? And if we can, here's how we can do it. We have to be mindful that doing it safely can take a lot of staff time and a lot of staff resources, and you have to get to the question, is it worth that expenditure of staff resources to be able to do it? Or is there another way that we can offer an analog to that service, perhaps virtually or something outside like Holds Pickup? So that's kind of that's the constant thought process that we are going through.
So, I mean, the library wouldn't open for browsing through the year. I mean, it's going over what the city has said. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, like the library is.
I wouldn't want to get ahead of the city manager or the city commission. Ultimately, that's their decision to make. I can tell you that my recommendation to our city manager is that while, until we are in another phase in the governor's reopening plan, I don't believe any other libraries in Link are planning to open before we get to phase 2. I don't believe most libraries in Washington County have the same plan, and I have heard nothing from Multnomah County about opening any time before then. So I personally do not think it would be safe to open the building at this point. And one of my responsibilities is to make sure that I can ensure the safety of our staff and of the community, and throwing open the doors, especially we have vulnerable populations, packing them into the library, it's a nightmare scenario. So no, we're we want to make sure we do things safely. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay. And then, so that's kind of where we are with operations. I have given some other information in the director's report. I don't want to go on and on too long. There's information in there about the schedule for our book drops and our no contact holds pickups. I put some information there about some new programs that we've offered. The ones I'd like to identify real quickly is our anti-racism book club started to meet. They met back in July for their first inaugural meeting. They are meeting next on Monday, August 24th, and the book they've selected is How to Be an Anti-Racist. And we've gotten some very good feedback on that, some very good community comments on kind of taking the lead in some programming around that. We have started a new video series called Library Hacks, understanding that patrons are going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, using our online resources more frequently. We want to make sure they have short little bite-sized instructional videos on how to do things in the catalog, like finding a new release or placing a hold. We plan to expand that to how to check out an ebook, how to use some of our new databases that we have coming online. And so we're putting those videos together. And we are focusing on our grab-and-go art kits. We have had some good success with that, so we plan on continue doing that throughout the fall. And I think for that's it. Excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. Much better. I did share that on June 9th, the City Commission unanimously adopted Resolution 2019, declaring Oregon City's stance against racism, discrimination, and social injustices in our country and community. I provided a copy of that. I can let you know the library is fully supportive of the Commission's action, and we are going to be looking. We have been and will continue to look for opportunities to support the Commission's work in achieving those goals. So we're pretty excited about that.
What does that mean in the context of the library?
So in the library, it's doing things. It's doing some more programming that more closely addresses racism. So our anti-racism book club. We had a very successful program called Building Bridges last year. I presume that Mo shared some of that with you. It was there opportunities for community conversations on some of these difficult topics about race, class, and the like. And we think there's an opportunity to kind of build under that Building Bridges brand, to build some more programs to increase the amount of community conversations that are happening. We have been approached by some community groups to look at some of the needs that kids are going to be having as the school year starts, and how we can make sure that there are some resources available that take equity issues into concern, such as Spanish language availability, understanding that there are homeschoolers out there who elect not to go through the school district, to make sure that we have resources available for them. And I feel it really fits in with the equity portions of our strategic plan, of ensuring that everybody in the service area has access to library services and materials, and that if there are barriers there, if we have barriers that prevent access, that we are very conscious and intentional about looking at those and doing what we can to maybe eliminate some of those barriers. So that's in a nutshell.
Will other viewpoints be allowed, like with this anti-racism book club? That's part of the Oregon City Library? Because I've read that book, and there's a great review by one of the world's best linguists, who is Black, John McWhorter, in the Atlantic, who eviscerates this book in the book review. So, I mean, are those other perspectives going to be allowed and shared? Because it seems more like it's just presenting a viewpoint to me. And the library shouldn't be doing that, in my opinion.
No, not so. Absolutely. So the book club, the idea of a book club is that you have people of all different perspectives, all different opinions, coming and joining and having conversations about the book. So those perspectives would be gladly welcome at the book club. We would expect and do expect everybody to abide by our code of conduct, when they're participating in library events. But we welcome, the library is a place for discourse, discussion, and exchange of viewpoints. We, of course, would welcome that. And the whole Building Bridges series was about facilitating those conversations, was about bringing people together with different viewpoints, creating a safe space where they can have these discussions, talk these things through, and hopefully facilitate some better understanding. So absolutely, we are welcome to all of you.
So. I keep hearing these phrases, but I don't really see much of a discussion or many other different viewpoints being allowed to be expressed. I mean, that's not what I've seen, in the last couple of months. Has been pretty much not allowed. So I hope that's what happens with the Oregon City Library.
Yep, I can assure you that I think that is a core value of libraries. It's a core value of libraries, is to allow that safe space for all different viewpoints. We take great efforts in our collection development to make sure that different viewpoints are represented in the books that we purchase and that we check out to people. We do try to make sure we have different viewpoints represented in the programs we offer. We spend a lot of time and energy creating programs to reach different segments of the community. We are all about inclusion and facilitating those discussions. So I can commit to you that yes, the library will do that.
I'd point out that I helped rewrite the motto that's outside of the library in the foyer there, and helped add in the phrase, the search for, free inquiry. So, I mean, that's, I helped write that and put that in there. That's something that's very important to me. Okay.
So we will of course live up to that. And if you ever see it, if you do have specific concerns about a program, or if you participate in a book club and you feel that those viewpoints are not being heard or allowed, that is definitely something that we need to talk about and we can address. So, but. Okay. And then finally, I put some information about the library district. I mentioned the libraries have agreed to extend their circulation periods on all items through Labor Day, extending circulation periods on everything to 28 days, including DVDs and the like, so people can check things out for longer periods of time. All linked libraries have agreed to check in materials fine-free through Labor Day, so no fines will accrue on anything till Labor Day. We have ongoing conversations with the other libraries to see about if we want to extend that, and if we do, I would of course let you know. And then finally, I did want to share our Library of Things program, which I think you've heard about before. It was nominated for and won a NACO award, National Association of Counties award, which is kind of a nice little feather in the cap. We had several staff members who worked very hard on the Library of Things program, both locally and in conjunction with the county, and it was great to see their work recognized nationally. So I wanted to share that. So that's the director's report. Any other questions or concerns or comments?
I think we move on then to the expanding the capacity of the book drop.
Okay, so in your packet, you should see a picture of where we would like to put the book drop. I can call out my screen if you haven't seen it. Let me do it real quick. Everybody see that? Okay. So it would be basically a duplicate of another unit of what we already have. We would put it right next to it. The main reason I wanted to bring this to you is the city charter does have a provision in it that says that you may not put a non-recreational structure onto park property without a vote of the people. So we have checked in with our historic review board, our planning department, and others, and our city attorney, and we have been assured that since we are simply expanding capacity of an existing function that the library is engaged in, that this will not be considered. There's an exemption in the charter for doing so. I just wanted to let you know about that, just in case there were, I know that just in case there were ever any concerns, if anybody ever said, well, you were supposed to get voter approval for that. I want to assure the board that we have checked in with our city, appropriate city departments. We have checked in with our city attorney. We are good to go on this. This is something that is desperately needed, both for our regular operations and as we talked about during this time when we're not open as much as we are. This will allow us to accept returns 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I would hope that there is support from the board for us to do this. If there are any concerns or questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, talk through anything.
Greg, the only question that I have is, you said that staff, when this is pre-COVID, was going out to empty that every hour.
Correct.
So will doubling the capacity prevent that from happening? Are they still going to fill up?
They will probably fill up. When we go back to, this is presuming we go back to our normal, our normal volume. Yes, the book drops will eventually fill up during the course of a day. We won't have to check it as often. So the things that it will buy us immediately are, I won't have to have a staff member going out there, pulling them off of a desk or pulling them out of the circulation room to go check that every day and empty it to make sure it's not overflowing. When we close for holidays, and Denise can talk a little bit more about this, but when we close for holidays, with this capacity, we can't last a day with this open over a holiday. We either have to have somebody come in on the holiday just to empty it and to replace the bins, or we have to leave it open or locked and people just leave stuff on top of it or it overflows. Most of the other libraries, their buildings, a lot of them have internal drop boxes. So you go up to the library itself and you return the material in and it goes into the circulation room. And in that situation, you know what, if the bin overflows, big deal. You've got, it falls on the floor, but it's in the library, it's safe, it's secure, it's not going to get rained on or it's not going to get stolen. We don't have an internal drop box, in our building. So we've got these external ones. There is a small one that's outside the front entrance at the Carnegie, and that does not get used nearly as much as the 6th Street one. This is where people come to drop things off. Mostly, it's convenient for cars to pull up and just drop things off there, which is why that's where we want to put the second one. This is where people are already coming to return their materials, and we just want to make sure that we have capacity there, that they can do so. We can leave the book drops open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week without risk of overflowing, and it will also give us a spot that, you know, we can quarantine materials in there for a little bit of time. You know, we can have another spot where we can securely put items while we're waiting to process them. So that's why we'd like to go forward with it. And again, we do not believe this will require a citywide vote. That would be a very expensive book drop if it did.
How quickly can you get it done?
We can get it pretty quickly.
Is it? It's on the way?
It is on the way, yes.
Okay.
Right, is that everything from you, Greg, on your report?
That is on, there's one more thing. I did provide you with the library district distribution memo, the second distribution memo, just to share that with you. As a reminder, the library district makes distributions twice a year, once kind of in January or the end of December, and once at the end of the fiscal year. We got our second distribution at the end of June, and it came in about $50,000 more than was budgeted in our city budget for that fiscal year of the biennium. So a nice surprise that will give us a little cushion going into the second year of the biennium if, you know, for some reason district revenues taper off. We're at least at this point 50 grand ahead, you know, 50 grand ahead of the game when it comes to district revenue. So.
Great, that's fantastic.
Yes, that is always nice to have more revenue coming in than you anticipate.
All right, so is that it, Greg, on the report?
That is it on the report. I know we're running along. I will have some more. I have been revising the stats. I did not include statistics this month around just because of timing and everything else we were working on. I have statistics that I can share. We can either share that as part of our next meeting, or I can mail those out under separate cover, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Yeah, the next meeting would be good for me, I think, because I do need to run. It's getting a little late. So to wrap up real quick, Cynthia, did you have anything from the Library Foundation?
We met July 15th by Zoom, and Greg was there to make a report similar to what he just did, and Denise was a guest. We were very happy to have her. It's nice to have a library staff member there, just in case we had questions, and also see the faces of people that work in our library. We're very happy about that. I think there are two areas that the Library Foundation can help the library. Those were discussed in our meeting. One is to provide potentially funding for the mailers that are enabling books and materials to go out to families. And Greg is going to put together a proposal so the foundation can review that. And then secondly, there was a discussion about maybe that fabric furnishings are not the best during this pandemic time, and to keep clean and sanitized. And even though that furniture is new and heartbreakingly new, it may be that we need to replace some furniture with some different materials. And so perhaps the foundation could help with that. But again, that will be a future item depending on what happens. We're financially stable, and we received donation from the Oregon City Schools Foundation of $500 to go to the Dolly Parton project. And so we're thrilled about that and happy to have them on board as a partner. In terms of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, we are doing well. We're mailing to almost 200 kids each time, and we're doing well and meeting our goal. We're about 68% of our goal to serve our service area. So that would be it.
Thank you, Cynthia. Greg, did you have a brief update on the Friends of the Library?
Very brief. They are continuing. They're operating 3 days a week at the Friends store, limited hours. They have been pleasantly surprised. Even though they're only open a third of the hours, the revenue hit has only been about 50%. So their revenue hit wasn't as bad as they anticipated. They are having difficulties finding volunteers to staff all of the hours. So I'm sure I'll put out a call for volunteers if anybody would like to volunteer at the Friends store. I'm sure they would love to hear from you. And other than that, they're also dealing with a large volume of people wanting to donate materials. We figure everybody's stuck at home at the pandemic, has taken the opportunity to do some spring cleaning and decided they want to give everything to the Friends. The Friends are currently limiting to 2 boxes per donation, and they're getting a lot requests for a lot more than that. So they're just trying to work with that. And they are quarantining materials similar as what we are.
Thank you, Greg. Next item is future agenda items. Does anyone have any of that to add? If not, is there any unfinished or new business? And hearing that there is none, this meeting is adjourned. Stay safe, everyone.
You
See you
too.
next
Take
month.
Thank you,
care.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks for the
you.
Thank
information.
you, everyone.
Thank the staff for us, please.
Yes.
I certainly will. I certainly will. Thank you for recognizing their efforts. It's greatly appreciated.
Here.
Okay. I stopped recording, Denise. Is that what I should do?
I think so, yeah.